Okay, so this is CAD, and I wanted to find out how, like these numbers here. This is, you've seen it in the other video with the Construction Master. The first jack was 10'4" and 1/16. And so I reverse engineered that. First thing I did was I take 10'4" and 1/16, enter that as the diagonal, and then I put in 8 and 12 as the pitch. And when I hit run, it becomes 8'7" and a quarter. And the actual CAD here fluctuates between 8'7" and a quarter and 8'7" and 3/16. The length is so close that it was like 1/1000th of an inch difference. So it rounded to 3/16. So I changed that. I made it what it is on the calculator, and keeps everything unified that way by part of a 16th. Anyways, now that I know, so how I did this was I took a rectangle and I went like this. And none of these numbers, these dimensions, I don't make these up. I draw it to the right size and I just dimension it. And like I mentioned, drawing it, the rounding procedures of this software rounded it to 8'7" and 3/16. The calculator rounded it to 8'7" and a quarter. So however they've written their rounding. Then what I do here is I went 8'7.25", and that makes this exactly that length. And then I moved this over and lined up the long point right there, so that this is where the Construction Master calculator says the first jack is, and it's still 16" on center. But what that does is it offsets this, like, I don't understand. I'm trying to figure out where they pull their dimension from, because if you follow along and you type in, this is your run, 8 and 12 is your pitch, and then you hit diagonal, you get the length of this rafter. And the length of the rafter is 11, 11 and 5/16. So that's correct. You'll be correct all day long, twice on Sunday. Then if you hit hip, the hip comes back as 15/6 and 7/16. And that's also correct. And then if you hit jack, see, it's correct, but these jacks mean you have to move all this, and that's where they get off. Because here's the way I frame it. I use 3 commons, and then the ridge butts into this end common, and then the hip, I mean, this is on a common pitch roof, so everything works out 45 degrees and all that stuff. The hips are cut with a diamond cut, which is just 2 bevels. And they all come together right like this, and these theoretical center lines all line up, except that this first jack ends up being 10'4" and 5/8 in reality, when Construction Master and Build Calc are 9/16 off. They're 9/16 too short. And then in other instances, if I had a LVL ridge, hip or valley, then maybe the Construction Master would be a little closer to reality. Or what if I had a 3.5 inch ridge? Then I'd have to come back and do a second. I'd have to figure out where 1.5" or wherever that number is to run a second main common, so that I could have those numbers in the Construction Master's little brain, so that when I push jacks, the jacks are the right length. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm going to find out what I have to do. Do I have to subtract a certain amount out of this hip? And man, the number of variables is crazy, because as soon as you go from a common hip roof to an irregular pitched roof, you're going to have to factor for the thickness change as this hip swings out. It's going to get longer on this side and shorter on this side. So those are independent calculations also. Good thing is that cutting them all about a 1/2 inch short isn't a fail until you get down here to these little guys here, and then you'll see your plywood, it's running crooked. And I just want that figured out. If Construction Master is wrong because they're just statically taking the calculated run and then just spitting out numbers that are just a little bit off, you know, like 9/16 off on each one, I want to find out what I got to do to this number right here so that I use the real calculated run to get the real rafters and the real hips. And then I modify the run to a different size so that when I run the jacks are correct. And that's our mission.